Hi, welcome to my second video for those who want to join my workshop or just want to learn from my editing videos. The first video is about Lightroom, the second one will be about Photoshop. All I want to explain to you is how I use layer and layer masks and what kind of tools that I use on a workshop and what do you actually need to know when coming to the workshop. You don't need to know all Photoshop, just a few basic tools. First thing that is most important to me, that you know layers and layer masks. Right now I have this image open in Photoshop, and what I have here is when it says layers, I have only one layer, which is called the background layer, which is locked by default. And we'll keep it this way, and this way you should keep it on the workshop. So you don't actually do anything to the background layer, we'll just put more layers on top of this. Well, the easiest way for me to imagine what layers are is to imagine like pieces of paper put one on top of another, where I can just use my scissors to cut it from it. I can just paint and change the opacity of every of those pieces of paper. So try to imagine this like that, and I think that will be easier for you to understand if you don't understand layer masks so far. And we have a tool here to create a new layer. I'll just click here, and what I just created is a new empty layer, which is called layer 1. On this layer I can do basically anything. I just paint something on it. I just try to paint something on this layer mask. This one, you can see that it's this kind of checkers with white and gray, means that this has nothing on it. It's completely empty. I'll use a brush tool and paint something on this layer. Okay, there are a few words which I need to explain about using a brush tool. I've got a brush tool here. I can see the preview what it does, and let's just go over here and check the settings on a brush. Whenever I say I need a soft brush, that means that the hardness has to be to 0. Everything else is just a hard brush, depending on how much hardness that you use. And the size you set here, but I actually think that this is very inconvenient to use this slider, so I usually use brackets to change the size of the brush. And there's a second thing here called there's opacity and flow. Right now I have both set to 100, and this is not an easy way to work with a brush tool. I always say that you have to have either one of those, either opacity or flow, very low, like below 20. And I usually use flow for this, for working with a brush. And okay, I will just try to explain to you right now. Just stop those layers for a moment and explain what is the difference between opacity and flow. I've got layer 1 right now, and I will just fill this whole layer with white to be able to show you the difference between opacity and flow. To fill the whole layer with a color, you can go to edit, go to fill, and just choose white. Right now this whole layer is white. You can just turn it on and turn it off to show you what happened here. Okay, let's just try to choose a 20% opacity and leave flow to 100, and I will just paint something with that 20% opacity brush. And as I'm painting, I cannot get over that 20% of that color. When I let go and try painting again, I'm painting this second time on the same spot, I'm getting more of that color. I can paint a third time on the same spot And after a couple of times, I will finally go to 100% color in this area where I painted a couple of times. Let's just set the opacity to 100 again and change that flow to 20%. Right now I will just start painting here. So I'm not clicking and unclicking, I'm just holding the button and I'm just painting around. So I can, if I paint it a couple of times over here, then I got to 100%. It's a soft brush, so it's going to be create very soft look. Let's just go to hardness to 100 and show you how it looks. So that's how it looks. So you don't have to let go and click again to gain more of that effect. For example, a color on the certain area. I think this is the more painterly way to do this. This one seems more clean. So really, depending on what you want, you can choose either opacity or flow. I use flow. Let's just, right now I will remove this layer 1, so you can just click delete on this layer, or just drag it to the trash bin over here. Okay, let's just create that new layer again. So again, click here and we got an empty layer right now. I will paint with my soft brush on here again. Okay, I just painted over her, and for example, if there was some more complicated information on this, let's imagine that there's more complicated information than just color. And say, for example, I want to be able to see her face again. What I could do is one way, and I almost never use this way, is to just use the eraser tool. And you can just erase the area that painted on her face. And that's fine, as long as you are certain that you won't need that information from this layer 1 back on any time of your editing. But I'm never that sure, and I like to do things non-destructively, so I never use that eraser tool, because the only way to get that information back is just to go back in history. And if I did more steps, I could have to remove all the steps and do it again. I'd rather use a layer mask on this. So if you are on the layer 1 and you click on this icon here, that will create a layer mask. And the layer mask by default is white, means that everything on this layer right now is visible. If I change the color to black, everything will become invisible. So let's just try changing this color. We'll click Command or Control I or invert. That will invert the color of the mask to black, because the layer mask can be either white or black or any shade of gray, but no other colors. We've got this right now black, meaning that everything on the layer 1 is invisible. Just change it back to white and try to use a brush and paint on the face. Right now I'm getting that information back, but if I wanted to restore the information from layer 1, I could just change my color again to white and paint it back. Another cool thing about this is that you can move layer 1 without moving the mask. All you have to do is unclick this. This is like a chain that connects those two. And you can unclick this, and right now, if you click on the layer mask, so on that information on the layer, you can just move it around without moving the mask. And so this is basically what layer masks are for. For example, I could just use it in real life. I could use this to cover, to use another image to put on this little boy behind her, to have only her on the on the image. What I would have to have is any kind of information that could be on that boy. So, for example, those trees. In this case, I've got this another image, so I've got the information from behind the boy. So I could use this to remove him from this image, which is quite simple. I'll try to show you that in the end of this video. Okay. Other tools that I use are things for removing stuff from the background. And we've got a couple different ways of quickly removing stuff. We can use either spot healing brush or the regular healing brush. Most of the time I use spot healing brush. Just go closer because that's a good tool to removing any kind of linear objects. For example, she's got some stray hair flying here in the air. I do not have to remove them from the image, but if I wanted to remove some, for example, from her face, I could use this spot healing brush for that. I'm changing the size of this spot healing brush with my brackets on my keyboard. I'll just try to remove that little scratch on her nose with this. This is very simple, very quick, very easy tool to use. So you can remove any kind of stray hair from the image. This is one way to do it. Another tool to removing object is to use a patch tool. Patch tool is something that you have to do is just have to select area that you want to remove, and then after selecting, you just have to drag it to a place that you want the information to be taken from, and then it will just take from this area and put that information over here. But what it does, it tries to blend in, so the transition between this area and what we have here is soft. So what we'll do is just kind of drag this around. Okay, let's just click Ctrl Z to get it back. Right now, what I said, I never worked on a background layer, and I just did. It's really better to create a copy of the background layer if you want to work on this. So to create a copy of the background layer, what you have to do is either click Command J or Ctrl J, or just drag it down to the new icon layer, a new layer icon, and then create a background layer copy. Another way to remove objects is to simply, I would just use my lasso tool and go around. So I'll just select a piece of my image, and then I can use fill with content aware. To go to fill, to go to content aware, you just have to go to fill, and from this dialog, choose content aware. And with content aware, click OK. It will try to automatically choose the best information to fill with this frame. It doesn't usually, sometimes it doesn't do the best job, especially if you have some kind of thing like this. If that was, it's a good tool, so I don't think that, but it didn't do a good job in this particular case. But for example, if we had something that was not connected with anything else, for example, this area here, and then you go again to fill, and you choose content aware. Right now, it should do a better job. because it will be easier for it to choose a good area. So those are the three, I think, two of the three ways to remove objects. And another way to remove object is to use a clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool is here. It's like a clone stamp, right? And then it just can clone everything. Let's just try to do this on a new layer. So click here and create a new layer. We can clone stamp on a new layer, which I think is a better way than doing it on the layer with the image. You can do it the same as you do on an image if you ever use this, but you have to have current and below or all layers here chosen as a sample. Because if you have current layer chosen as to sample, we'll try to sample from an empty layer, so it will just sample nothing. And I just choose all layers and try to sample. So to sample an area, I just have to click Alt and that will show this. And you click on an area and then you go over the area that you want to cover. And right now you can see the preview of what I'm going to copy here. So I can just paint around and I'm just copying the information from basically from over here when I can see my cross. There's a cross next to my circle and just moving as I'm moving the circle. So I can just copy the information, but this will actually repeat the same information. So we've got this here and that was repeated over here. And if I was using that more and more, I could get a little closer to her head, and that will be pretty difficult right now then to handle, to be so precise, to not go over her hair and not make it look fake. So for that kind of tool, for that kind of job, what we need to have is any kind of selection active. So I already showed you a little bit of a lasso tool. What we have also is rectangular marquee tool, which is good for any kind of areas like door or window where you have straight lines. Then there's lasso tool, which is very useful for the things that I showed you when you want to remove an object using content aware. Sometimes when I want to just grab an area from a different image and I don't need the whole image, I just need to grab an area. In this kind of situation, when I want to have my girl, the girl here selected on the edge, I like to use personally my quick selection tool, because I think this is the easiest and the quickest way to make selections. You have to click on this and you have a couple of options. First, just selection done is adding to a selection and subtract from a selection. We'll just click on the first option, and then you can also change the size. So the size will mean how precise you are with selecting this. So let's just go around. I'm sorry, I'm on this layer 1, which has nothing on in this area, so we can't. My Photoshop actually can't make out what I want to select. So I have to have this background copy and select it, and now I can, when I move around here, that will then see. Should be able to see. Sorry, that should be able to see her hair. Okay, let's just move around and select some of their hair. Okay. I don't need to be precise on this side because I just want to remove the boy from behind her, and so only this, I'm interested only in this line. And I just want to have this line, should be very precise line here, and I want precise line here and here, so I want to keep this part of this image, and this part I will just use a second image to fill this part. So I've got this selection right here on the edge. I will add more, so then I will use a marquee tool right now. I have this and I'm adding to this selection. Look what I'm doing right now. I will just add the selection on this side here, and I just have to include her legs. Right now, that's fine. But right now, what I actually selected is everything on this side. I want to have everything on the other side selected. So if you come across this kind of a problem, what you need to do is to select inverse, and just have to right click on the photo, having the selection active, any kind of selection tool active, and then you right click on the photo and then you choose select inverse. Right now what I have is everything else but her selected. And the other thing that you might we might use is a select and mask option. I've got this selected on this side. This was a soft selection. This one was a hard selection. You just go closer and try to see what's going on there on her hair. You have different view modes here, so I can just see everything, see on white. I think seeing on white is mostly useful for me right now. For example, I want this line to be quite soft. I can use and paint around here. I can add more or add less here. And choose my hardness to 0 and make a soft selection here. And or make a soft selection right here. To choose those little hair from this selection, what I can use is this. This helps you to select little hair. You just have to drag around areas that you have hair on, and it should help you to select straight hair. Okay. And another useful thing, and I use it all the time, is the output to settings. Okay, one more thing that I need some kind of feather, because this line here will be very harsh, and I just need it to be a little softer so it looks more natural when combining two images. And one more thing is I use that output to, and I click and I use my new layer with a layer mask. So that will create a new layer, the copy of the layer that I was using, and a layer mask on this. So everything probably on my left side would be colored with black on mask. So let's just try to do it. And as I said, this is a copy, background copy, plus a layer mask, which is visible on this side. If I click that off, the background layer, what you can see that everything that is white is visible on this layer, everything that's black is invisible. I can choose to invert that mask by clicking Ctrl-I, and right now what I have here is the opposite of what I just showed you. Okay, let's just bring another image. Oops, I have the line here. So this is this is what I like to use that output to, because then what I get is layer mask, and I can just fix everything, fix some things by hand. For example, in this case, I will just fix that edge by hand because I didn't see that it was a soft selection here on the edges. And for this image, for this side, I actually have another photo here. This is the same situation. The girl is over here, the boy just moved around. What I have here is this. So all the information that was behind this boy, so I could just remove him. And right now what I want to do, I want to have this image in the other file. So to get that image to another file, all you need to do is just click on this, and I'm holding this, and I'm still holding until I move onto the image and I let go right now. So right now I have this image. This is called layer 1, and this is in my file with this image of the girl. Right now it's on top of her, so it's covering her, but if I move it down, it will be below her, and I can just move it here. And ta-da, what I have right now is the boy is gone right now, and it's perfect. One thing that I can fix is this. So you can just go and use a white brush, and it just have to be a little more purple. And again, I think using a lower flow would be smarter. Okay, so what we did, we just removed the girl, and I think those are all the options that we might use in the workshop. You don't need to know anything else. If I ever introduce something new, that I will explain that on the workshop. And this is the final image, and this is the final edit on this using then Lightroom tools. So I will show the whole editing and the colors and the light and everything in my tutorials on my website. My website is iwonapodlasińska.com, and go and check it out to see the whole edits, full edits, doing everything from start to the final image. Well, thank you so much for watching this, and I hope to see you in the workshop.